Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Age Group Triathlon podcast, where this week I am joined by a mentor of mine, Simon Ward, who I met on the British Triathlon High Performing Coach Programme back in 2022, I believe it was, 2020, late 2021 maybe. And I worked with him throughout this. It's a year-long program. It's a big sort of self-development program for coaches. And when I was sat down thinking to myself, well, I'd like to do sort of the unwritten rules of triathlon. I've done the written rules of triathlon, that's a bit dry, albeit important. Let's look at some of the unwritten rules of triathlon. Who would be a good person to sort of to come on and, knock some ideas in about? I thought, well, Simon would be a great idea. He's probably done more triathlons than I've had at dinners. So I dropped him an email. He's more than happy to come on. Now, the fact that this is unwritten rules, it simply means that very little of what we cover in this episode is of any great consequence. There are a couple of pieces regarding safety when riding in a group on the road, but other than that, these are just our opinions that we're knocking about, things that we think are, for the most part, just considerate of other athletes. But it's not the kind of thing that you're going to get into any major trouble if you don't follow. So this is all sort of quite light-hearted. Don't take it overly seriously. Hello, Simon Ward. Welcome to the Age Group Triathlon podcast. How are you doing today?
Yeah, good. Thank you, Simon. Yeah, Simon and Simon.
So I just tried introducing Simon onto his own podcast just then. Um, so on that subject, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your coaching, and your podcast?
Yeah, I've been involved in triathlon since 1987, so that's coming up to 40 years.
Mm.
That was when I did my first race. Um, I think I did my last race in 20 in 2017. So that's 30 years, almost to the day. So it was a nice sort of round number to finish on. I started coaching in 1995, a bit by default. I wrote a magazine article about my first Ironman and how I trained for it, and the magazine offered to let me sort of promote what I was doing. I had a personal training business at the time, so I was involved in the fitness world. And a couple of people wrote to me off the back of the article and said, "Oh, I'm interested in whether you'd be able to help me out to do an Ironman." And at that stage, there wasn't any formal coaching organisation in the UK, um, so I just got started. I think it was around the early 2000s, British Triathlon put in a formal um, coaching tier level. They had level one or level two then. So
Mm.
I went and did those qualifications and became a level two coach. So then I was accredited. Worked with Jack Maitland as my business partner then, and we also ran the Talent ID program for British Triathlon in the north of England. So the remit there was to find talented young male and female athletes who could swim and run primarily. They weren't
Yeah.
interested in the biking at that point. And so we were lucky enough to have a couple of little Brownlees in the Yorkshire area that we found, and so that the story from there.
Mm.
Um, in 2005, I got involved with British Triathlon as a tutor and a coach educator, and so I've been doing that now for 20 years as well. So um, don't have the personal training anymore. Still do the triathlon coaching, still do the coach education and facilitation, which is where we met on the
Indeed,
HPCP.
yes.
And as you mentioned, I have a podcast which have been um, running now for almost 8 years.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah,
it definitely give that a listen. What's the name of it for the listeners?
it's a high performance human podcast.
There we go. So definitely give that one a look. Um, so what we're going to discuss today is, well, a couple of weeks I did an episode where I talked about the rules of triathlon. I did a whistle stop tour of the competition rules, which whilst it's important for people taking on their first triathlon to have an appreciation, it is a bit dry. So I thought, well, we'll switch it up. We have the written rules of triathlon and then with the unwritten rules of triathlon. And I wanted to get yourself involved, somebody who's been in the sport, for a lot longer than I have, to get your idea of, what some of sort of rules that, people, that athletes should kind of follow. Again, very few of these are written down. It's
Mm,
more a case of etiquette. It's more a case of just being respectful to other athletes that you're training with, or perhaps sharing the race course with. Because for a lot of people who are very new to the sport, a lot of people start triathlon with very little experience in swimming, cycling, and running, but they watch Kona, or they see, their brother take on an Ironman, and they think, you know what, I'm going to have a crack at that. But there are, especially in the pool, which is where we're going to start, there can be quite a few little sort of rules that you never really find them written down, but that people generally sort of pick up through the years. If somebody came through, a competitive swimming background, then they'd be well versed in these. But if you just head yourself down to the local Nuffield Health or the local David Lloyd,
Mm.
you do run the risk of getting some rather, irate swimmers that you're sharing the lane with. And I think the reason for that is that when we're swimming, we tend to lose that human element a little bit more because we can't talk, we can't exchange, we can't say, "Oh, sorry, can I just squeeze through there?" Can just, "Oh, yes, sorry, I didn't see you there. My fault." There's none of that. All we have is people sort of aggressively sort of overtaking people and tapping toes and all of this, which can really feel like a little bit of a code to people. So, if you could start us off, Simon, with your first unwritten rule of pool swimming.
Ooh, well, um, let's see. When I started swimming in Masters Group, and I had already started doing triathlon, most of the people there were swimmers.
Mm,
And so there's a very defined etiquette there. Um, we had pool clocks at the time. So some of the listeners, your listeners might be familiar with those. They have two hands that are diametrically opposed. One's coloured red and one's coloured blue or yellow and black, right? And so the coach would say you're setting off on the black top when the black hand got round to the zero. And in the interim period over the last 30 years, more and more triathletes have started swimming,
hmm
and also smartwatches and gadgets have also become popular. So now what you get is people coming to the pool with their watch, and instead of using the clock to start, they're using their watch. And that's fine if you're swimming on your own. But when you
mm,
swim with a group of masters athletes who are used to going off at a regimented 5 or 10 seconds
hmm
apart, you fiddling with your watch to get it started to capture your rep and then fiddling with your watch at the end of it to record it and make sure before you start again is, oh, it's annoying. It's really annoying. And as a coach, I also find that irritating when you're setting people off and I've got the stopwatch and I'm
Oh,
controlling
yeah.
the times to get their times. I've got somebody telling me that because there's a satellite not aligned above, they can't go on their repetition yet. And so the whole lane has to wait for them to get the watch
Yeah.
sorted and get aligned with you know, Elon Musk's
Yes.
overhead
Yes.
spaceship.
I very much, like I do think there can be a bit of like gatekeeping when it comes to swimming with watches. Some coaches, some athletes, believe they should
Mm,
be nowhere near a pool. I mean, I think if it's what motivates someone, if they want to see their data, if they want to see their SWOLF score go down, if they want to see that average
mm,
pace, because a master swimmer, they will know their 100 pace, they will know their
hmm
400 pace. Whereas for triathletes, a lot of them are developing so rapidly in the
Yeah.
pool. They like to be able to see that quantifiable improvement from the watch. So I think that's fine. But if you are interfering with what other people are doing, if you're disrupting the
Yeah.
session, you just need to press start and you just need to go.
Yeah, well, you can leave it. I mean, if you leave the watch running for the whole session,
Yeah.
actually the software within your Garmin or your Sunto or
Mm.
your Apple Watch is actually quite good at breaking down the intervals that you've done.
Yeah.
And it does, most of the watches do have a setting where you can tell it whether you're swimming in a 25 meter or a
Yes.
25
Yeah.
yard pool. So it knows roughly when you've changed. I would, when I was coaching the swim club,
Mm.
tri club sessions before we got called off with COVID,
Mm.
probably about half the people would wear watches. And I did try banning them at one point, and of course I got that pushback. Well, I need to know my time. So then
Mm.
I challenged people and said, "Well, okay, so you were here last week. So what did you ascertain from analysing your data from last
Mm.
week?"
Yeah.
Well, I haven't looked at it. So have you ever looked at the data? Maybe once or twice. Okay, what did it tell you? I had a really fast 100 on the 14th of May. Okay, right. So actually, you're collecting all that data along with all the data from your bike and all the data from your running. You're not really looking at it. So what's the point?
No, I
Um,
agree. If somebody
yeah,
isn't, if it's not actionable data, if people are actually going to learn from that data, if they just want to see how long it took them to swim the set and they upload it to Strava and get a
yeah,
few kudos,
yeah.
then yeah, you have to question, whether it's really worth all the kind of, because it can be a bit frustrating because it can come up that the lengths don't get registered because you didn't push
Mm.
off the wall hard enough. I mean, if you especially if you're holding the group up.
Well,
Um,
and also that thing about people timing the warm-ups and the kick sets. That they're
yes,
not important. And drill sets are about doing the drills properly, not swimming for time.
yeah,
So there's actually maybe 30% of the actual swim session that is worth getting the data for.
mm,
And like you say, most of the master swimmers I know are they're like darts players. They may
yes,
not have a degree in maths, but they still have got incredible numerology when it comes to working out where the clock started and finished and what their
yes,
swim time was. And they'll be able to recite all 20, 100 times for you afterwards. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, that's the juxtaposition of swimmers and triathletes,
Yes,
right?
I think there's
Sometimes it
always
doesn't
going to be a
work.
bit of
Mesh.
there's always going to be a bit of friction in that
Oh,
situation. And the slow lane, you're often going to have your adult onset swimmers. Your
yeah,
fast lane, you probably have people who resemble fish as much as anything. But it's
yeah.
that kind of that lane two and three where they there can be that sort of that tripping over each other. But I would encourage anyone if you are fiddling around with your watch, if you feel that it is like it shouldn't be impacting on other people's session, other people's enjoyment, because at that point, you're just being set, like you say, it is a bordering on being a bit selfish for something that you're not actually going to,
Mm,
look at in
mm,
detail. My one that I was going to kick off with was, I think, possibly my biggest bugbear in triathlon, full stop. It's when you're swimming in a lane in a public session
mm.
and somebody just gets in and starts swimming around it and just sort of forcibly inserts himself into the lane, especially if you're splitting the lane with another swimmer. And the
Right.
next thing you know, somebody's swimming head on toward. I don't know how much you swim in a public session, but
Yeah.
I know.
Not a lot, but
Yeah.
they do have at the pool where I swim, they do have signs on the wall telling you the lane direction, and you said that
Mm.
the way we swim is sort of opposing circles. So one
Yeah.
lane's clockwise. It's like the even numbers are all clockwise, and the odd numbers are all
Mm.
anti-clockwise. But and the lifeguards are pretty good at correcting people,
Oh,
but
that's
it's
good.
it, but it's not perfect.
Yes. But I mean, what I tend to do whenever I get into into the pool, is I sort of get into the lane, and while I'm fiddling with my cap and my goggles, I'll sit with my feet just dangling in the water, so that everyone can
Okay.
see that another swimmer's about to join. And they
Yeah.
can then go, okay, if we're splitting the lane at the moment, we need to switch to that circle swimming. Or if it's just a solo swimmer who's going up and down the pool on their own, they know that they need to either stick to a side or they need
Mm.
to circle to switch to circle swimming, whichever it is they prefer. And I find that normally just sort of a quick conversation, oh, what is it you want to do? Oh, do you want to split it? Is that easier for you? Yeah, that's fine with me. But it does frustrate me when you have a near miss or somebody actually swims into you because they've just decided to insert themselves into the lane with sort of no warning.
Um, yeah, I mean, I was going to say communication's quite important,
Yeah,
isn't it? I think if
yeah,
you get in the lane with another swimmer, it's just to let them know what you're doing and what reps you're going to be doing, how
yeah.
often you're going to be setting off, so that at least you might think, well, I've sort of said I'm going to be setting off every time the clock gets to the top of the minute.
Hmm.
So if you're there at the top of the minute and thinking of starting, maybe you could let me go first, or I'll let you go
Yes.
first. But
Yeah.
um, I one of the things I had then was overtaking, which sort of gels nicely into that because in the masters groups that I started swimming in, the rule was if you were catching somebody up, you could tap them on the ankle once.
Hmm.
You don't keep tickling the feet. You tap them on the ankle once, probably when you're getting close to the end of the
Hmm.
lane, and they will pull over and hang on the wall.
Yeah.
And then as you turn quickly, you jump in behind them. You don't try and swim down the middle of the lane
Mm.
and overtake them in the middle of a rep because the other swimmers coming the other way aren't expecting it.
Yeah.
Um, so so that was the rule. You tap somebody and they should know to move over. But also if you get tapped, don't let your ego come into play and think, well, I'm going to speed up now. You move over as well and let that person go past. Um, so in public pools, that rule or that etiquette's not always there, is it?
It's not always that, and I'm a little bit reluctant to touch a stranger. Even,
Yeah,
some
fair
people can
point.
feel a bit vulnerable, if they're just wearing their swimsuit. I don't always want to. And you can gauge often by the way that someone's swimming where they are kind of a swimmer, whether they are somebody who might be familiar with these rules, or whether they're somebody who's there just to keep themselves moving, just do a little bit of exercise, whether they might understand what that means. But yeah, toe tapping, I think it's helpful. I mean, whenever I turn at the wall, I will always do a quick check to see if there's anybody who's right on my feet, just in case there is. And either, depending on, how far I am into the turn, if I'm doing a tumble turn and I'm already, about pushing off, it's probably faster for both of us if I just go and speed up and wait for them when I get to the other end. But what does
Mm.
wind me up is when you swim along and you get about three taps in a length, and it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
I got you the first time.
yeah, yeah. Well, you can do what you do in open water, can't you? I suppose, and just kick a bit harder. That always seems to work.
It's
But
one way to get around that
I mean,
problem.
I get your point. I think if you're swimming in a lane, you've got a member of the opposite sex, whether you're a good female
Mm,
swimmer or a good male swimmer, you tap somebody on the ankle, they might find that a bit uncomfortable.
mm,
I know one lady who's she's quite prominent on Twitter. She's a
mm,
good triathlete. She's a psychologist. She was talking about how she was swimming and um, there was a chap in the lane and she was a better swimmer than him. She overtook him. So as she was overtaking him because she'd caught him up, um, but he wouldn't let her pass. And he got really aggressive and kept trying to as she he wouldn't move over at the end of the lane, so she tried swimming in the middle of the lane, overtake him in the middle of the rep, and he just sort of was swimming wider and wider arms and really trying to muscle past her. And then as she went past, he grabbed hold of her ankle. He didn't tap it. He actually grabbed hold of her ankle and tried to pull her back. And in the end, she had to complain to the manager. So and that's an extreme example. But I have
mm.
seen at the pool in Leeds, I've seen people in lanes fighting, like
Really?
literally having hold of each other in the lane. It's actually quite amusing to watch. But having the lifeguards sort of standing on the side trying to encourage them to separate.
Yeah. I think it's like you were saying, it's kind of that ego of, well,
Oh, it's usually guys arguing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not getting past. I'm going to swim faster. I'm going to that. And, again, it's perhaps the mindset that a lot of people coming from running or coming from cycling might have, where they don't want to be overtaken. They see themselves to be in constant competition with the people in the next lane, with the people in their lane. And what they end up doing if you get dragged into that is you just have a rubbish session because you
Mm.
don't actually achieve what you were hoping to achieve in the session because you're spending all of your time getting yourself into silly races.
Well,
Um,
let me tell you a funny story. So when I first started doing triathlon, I used to go to the local pool in Wetherby, and I used to get there 15 minutes before the session started, so I was right at the front of the queue. And the two pool lifeguards, Mark and um, uh, Richard, I think it was,
mm,
they knew that I was swimming laps, and so they would help me out, and I would go right next to the wall, and I'd swim up and down next to the wall. So all the other people that came in, even though there were no lanes in the
mm,
pool, which was a 25-minute pool, everybody had the position where they liked to go. There was
yeah,
always a
yeah,
guy that went in the middle. There was always a lady went on
yeah.
the far side. So I'm swimming up and down, and I'm about 20 minutes into the session, and these two ladies decided that they wanted to come in, and they were very close to the wall.
Mm,
And as I went past doing one of my efforts,
hmm
um, one of the ladies uh, stood up. It wasn't particularly deep part of the pool. She stood up and she blocked me, and she said it. She was offended by the fact that her hair had got wet as she was swimming because I'd swam past her. So being a cheeky, you know, young man as I was then, I said, "Well, it's a swimming pool. What do you expect?"
yeah.
And I carried on swimming. When I swam back, a few seconds later, the two of them then basically were stood there blocking my way and saying, "You're making us wet while you're swimming." And again, I said, "Well, it's a swimming pool.
Mm,
You're going to get wet in here. Um, I always swim here. Maybe you could move over there." So they decided then that every time I went past, they would stop me. So the next time they were stood there, I ducked down under the water and I swam between their
yeah.
legs. Well, she didn't like that. So the next time I came past them, the manager or the pool attendants were at the end of the pool, and these ladies were complaining. So they stopped me and we had a little chat. But I could see
Mm,
these two guys were sort of smiling a little bit. At which point, Oh, it was Tony. That's right. Tony was the other guy. He said to the lady, "Look, madam, it's a swimming pool. People get wet in here." She said, "Well, I don't like your tone. Well, I want the manager." So then the manager was called, and these two ladies were, yeah, wouldn't give up on this fact that I
Mm,
was creating
yeah.
too much splash and making them wet. The upshot of this was very positive because the next week I turned up and a lane had been put in
Yeah.
um, to keep some separation, except that everybody that swam laps wanted to jump in the lane then. So
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but that was people getting upset with
I've
behaviours in the pool because it
yeah.
because there were just two different types of way of using the pool, right?
I've seen people, especially when I've been coaching on pool deck, and where I've got two lanes for my session, and then you've got the rest of the pool empty, and you've got people who get into the slow lane and they kind of and or not even this sort of, but they get into these other lanes and they are trying to be very territorial. I find it is interesting how a lot of the sort of the no offense, sort of the slower swimmers can be intensely territorial about their area, and somebody gets in, which is their right, it's an open lane, start swimming, and they start kicking up a fuss. So this other swimmer switched to butterfly,
Oh yeah, yeah.
which is a good way to to make yourself some space. Um, I know some people get very funny about people swimming butterfly, but I mean it's a swimming pool, and it's a competition stroke. I know that some pools ban it, and it's like, okay, fair enough. Maybe it's a community pool, maybe it's not that kind of
Mm,
space. But I think that, I mean, sometimes I like to do a little bit of butterfly. I'm not very good, but I like to give it a little bit of a crack every now and then. Um, but yeah, some people that it really upsets them.
mm.
When somebody does anything except sort of breaststroke or front crawl.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the point. At the pool we have in Leeds, the lanes are 2.5 meters wide, which means there's plenty of space. But if you've
Mm,
got somebody that's got a big wide arm span and they have a big wide recovery on butterfly, it can be a bit intimidating,
yeah.
can't it? Um, but that whole point, whole thing about getting in the wrong lane was another one of mine. Is
Mm,
um, that most of the pools in Leeds are set up for master swimming and lane swimming at certain times, and they do have fast, medium, medium, slower. But obviously everybody's got a different opinion of whether they're swimming fast, and so you'll get to the fast lane, and there'll be somebody that's swimming in there that's doing half breaststroke, half sort of
mm,
front crawl, but they're not very fast, but they're faster than the person who's in the other lane, and so they think, well, that means I'm in here.
yeah.
Um, but they then continue to swim in that lane. Yeah, I know my wife when she was training for the Ironman recently was telling me about a lady who was swimming breaststroke, and she was in this one lane, and Beth kept catching her up pretty much every 50 meters,
Mm.
but the lady refused to move over. But even when Beth was catching her at the end of the length, she pushed off at the same time as Beth. She didn't do that. Oh,
Yeah.
I'll stand to
Yeah.
the side for a
Yeah.
second. And
Yeah.
I know she was very frustrated by the sort of just poor etiquette, I suppose, is the easiest
Yeah,
way of describing
it's
it.
it's when you are having a negative impact on somebody else's session, and you could make
Mm,
an extremely small adaptation to your session. You could literally wait at the side for 1, maybe 2 seconds for them to turn and them to go.
mm,
Um, and let's face, no, nobody's completely immune to the ego piece of it. But I think that, more often than not, I mean, I'm not a lightning fast swimmer. If somebody is in the pool with me and they're swimming about 120 per 100 pretty consistently, that's sort of that real sort of like top end, elite swimmer, and that's their pace for the set. I'm always trying to keep in my mind where they are
mm,
within the lane so that I can
yeah.
make sure that I give myself, if they're going to be swimming sort of 4 or 5 seconds a length quicker than I am, I need to make sure that I'm
Mm,
anticipating that so I'm stopped at the wall in time for them to be able to have their turn.
mm,
And yeah, it is complicated. It can get stressful. I can understand how it can stress people out. In fact, I would prefer to be the person held up than to be the person doing the holding up or like worried about holding up
mm,
because you
mm.
don't want to have that impact on somebody's day, on somebody's session. Um, but another one that I had was when it comes to the wall, a real bugbear of mine is people who they'll sit there and they'll have a chat at the end of the lane and they'll be completely blocking the wall so
Oh
you
yeah,
can't
yeah,
push off of the
yeah,
wall.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. It's more difficult to do that at the pool we swim at because it's 2 meters deep, all the
Mm.
way through. So, but there is a trough, so you can still hang around at the
Yeah,
end of the
yeah.
lane. I very rarely swim in public sessions now,
Mm.
as in we've there's a set session, there's a set time at Leeds, and we've got a group of people who like to swim laps, and so we've
Mm.
organised it so we've got 3 lanes. So it's not an official master session,
Mm.
but it runs like one, and so everybody's there training. So we don't have people hanging on the lanes, but I have experienced that, and it's very frustrating.
It's one
Yeah.
thing if you're swimming, but like I've had it before where I've, for some reason decided to do 1500 hard in the pool to set myself, a benchmark to see
Mm,
what my pace
mm.
is. And when you're absolutely on your limit and you're gasping for every breath, and you have somebody who just like hangs around and holds you up, then your patience is just reduced that little bit. And I'm yet to snap at anyone, but you really do have to fight back that temptation to really want to, just slow you both down more if you try to chew them out over it. But
It's it's but it is interesting to think about this from the other perspective as well. So I've got a friend who, when he's got a goal, he's very focused on this goal,
mm,
right? It's almost like you know, his just particular mindset is very, very black and white. I'm going to do this today. And he was training for an open water swim, and he wanted to do a set which would have basically had him swimming for the whole of the time that the pool was
mm,
open that morning.
yeah,
Unfortunately, in having this fixed mindset, what it meant was that when somebody else was pushing off at the same time as him, he didn't want to give an inch and let them go.
no,
He just kept swimming. And as it went on through the hour and a half to 2 hour of the session, the number of incidents of them setting off together grew
mm,
until people were complaining. He didn't even stop when the management came. I think they ended up ringing the fire alarm to stop the session to talk to him. But his perspective, which in his mind was
mm,
perfectly rational and sane, was I want to do a 2 hour swim because I'm training for this event and I'm not
mm,
stopping. And I told everybody else in the pool what I was going to do, and so they should have known. Now, I mean, that's one of the things I've learned as a coach is not everybody has the same mindset, and
no,
so what somebody people think that what they're doing is perfectly normal and rational
mm.
might not seem that way to you and me.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
you can understand if you want to get a non-stop 2 hour swim in, you can
yeah,
definitely understand like wanting to keep the interruptions to an absolute minimum. But if you're going to do that set in a public session,
yeah,
there has to be an element of sort
oh yeah.
of give and take a little bit, and that like taking that 1 or 2 seconds to let somebody else pass, it's not going to, how is that going to impact you on race day
That was my
or his
point
goal?
exactly. Was how would it have affected your overall swim if you'd stopped for 5 seconds to let that person
Yeah.
set off? It wouldn't have done, but um, no, that's his particular mindset. So it
Mm.
did cause quite a bit of friction. I think he ended up getting asked to leave the pool. So um, yeah, didn't work out for him.
So that's
Um,
all I've got for pool swimming. Have you got
oh,
anything else?
I have.
All right, let's
I've
go.
got, yeah. So we'll getting in the wrong. I think we covered getting in the wrong lane.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're joining a master's session, then often the coaches like people to set off. Again, I think it depends on how many people you've got in the lane. When
Mm.
we used to swim in the 50-meter pool, the coach always wanted us to set off at 10-second intervals.
Yeah.
So you weren't drafting somebody and you were getting a sort of a
Yeah.
pure swim of your own ability. Um, but I think sometimes what happens, particularly when you get newcomers coming down, and sometimes these are triathletes, they'll push off quite quickly. They won't look at the clock. They'll just
Mm.
go and swim on somebody's toes. And perhaps the excuse is, well, that's what I have to do in a race, and so I have to get used to it. So that will definitely irritate your seasoned master swimmers who are used to
Mm.
being very regimented. Um, when we used to swim masters, they used to ask us to swim other strokes.
Hmm.
Um, Occasional butterfly, backstroke, maybe not so much breaststroke, but um, the coach would get quite irritated with the triathletes who would refuse to have a go, saying, "Well, it does. I don't have to do these
Mm.
in my races." Although, it was then pointed out to them that the ability to swim other strokes may enhance your overall swimming skill anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Bringing too much kit, having a great big hold all full of snorkel and fins and paddles and sponge. I mean, I have all these, by the way,
Yeah,
but we do
yeah, yeah,
use them. But having all the kit, but then putting all the kit on. And we used to have one guy who swam in our group who the only way he could keep up was to wear paddles and fins. And so instead of he wouldn't go into a slower lane, which was more suited to his
yeah.
swim speed, he would insist on wearing paddles and fins to keep up. And the other swimmers just found that was, in the end, it became more hilarious than irritable.
I mean,
Um,
it's his own development that he's stunting there, isn't it? As much
yeah,
as anything
I
else,
mean,
I
he
would have
actually
thought.
did. He was a very good coach. Um, so, and it was funny how his approach changed when he became a coach.
Interesting.
And I think the other one was the floaty pants things, the neoprene
Yeah,
pants that
yeah.
again help you with a bit more buoyancy and help you perhaps swim in a faster lane. And or the other one is wearing a tri suit in the pool. Yeah, particularly if it's got GBR on and your
Oh,
name on the
oh,
back.
yeah.
Yeah. And we'll come back to that one in a minute. But wearing your tri-suit in the pool, I mean, there's absolutely no need for it, and unless you're testing it out once for race day to make sure it fits and it's not got any chafing. But
Yeah, I
um,
can see that. But I mean, I always encourage, especially when we're about a month out from race day, to get at least one or two swims in complete race trim. So that's
yeah,
tri-suit, wetsuit, race goggles, everything. So you know that there isn't going to be any issues. Then you get on the bike with your race day setup and you do this whole sort of this race simulation piece.
and that's
Um,
fine, isn't it, for that specific day for a specific
yes,
reason? But when
yes.
it's every session,
Yeah. And I think as well, triathlon suits, they're expensive. And I wouldn't say they're fragile, but they're not built to last for 10 years. And the chlorine, the damage it can do to that tri-suit,
mm,
is probably not insubstantial. And again, if you're doing a pool-based triathlon, if you're doing 400 meters in the pool, yeah, it's not going to be an issue. But if you are swimming in that tri-suit sort of once, twice, three times a week, then I imagine that is going to have an impact on, the lifespan of the material as well as the
oh yeah,
colours. It might
for
not even
sure.
be able to read GBR on it after a few months of that.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I know those super fast race suits that the swimmers have, they are probably only last 5 or 6 meets, don't they?
Do that.
Um,
Oh, the swimmers.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
the sprinters at East Leeds, they occasionally put theirs on for sessions, and you can
yeah,
see them. They're so tight, it sort of takes
yeah,
two of them to
yeah,
put them on sometimes.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's all I've got for swimming, Simon. I think there's
Cool. So
plenty there, isn't there?
I've got one for lake swimming.
Oh, go on then.
Whenever you're at an open water swim venue, never look too closely into the cars because a lot of
Oh,
people will
really?
be you. Well, a lot of venues don't have changing rooms.
Right.
Open
Okay.
water venues.
Yeah.
A lot of people will be getting changed in the cars.
Okay.
So if you don't want to catch a glimpse of something that you probably don't want to see and they probably don't want to see either, don't spend too much time, lingering at that point. Again, a lot of venues they'll be at sailing clubs and they will have
Mm.
specified changing rooms. But I know, quite a few that I've been to around here, it's the idea is either you get changed in your car or you bring a dry robe or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Um,
I've never thought about that. Maybe that's is that a particular fondness of yours, Simon, looking in people's cars? They have places around near us for that, especially in an evening.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean it is a good point. I think that's that sort of just giving people space, isn't it? It's
yeah, yeah.
like um, Beth was pointing out a bit of triathlon etiquette when you're in a race is when you come into transition one. It's not when you get your wetsuit off and there's still somebody behind the person next to you still hasn't come out the swim. You put your wetsuit on all their kit, so it's dripping water on
Oh,
everything, and
yeah.
or you invade their little bit of space.
Yes.
That's not good
I
form.
know that, as somebody once said, T1 is like the place in your life when you're least capable of making, good decisions because it's
Yeah.
it's all a bit of a blur. Your heart rate's
Hmm.
up going from horizontal to vertical, and you want to get on
Mm,
the bike. Yeah, and
mm.
people make these decisions probably without even like thinking about it or realizing sort of the inconvenience to other people. But I've got there before and gone, where are my shoes? And realized that they're under somebody's wetsuit, and you just,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's. One piece of etiquette I've got for race day is if you think that the swim is going to take you 90 minutes, don't line up at an hour 10 to give you a bit more time to complete
Oh,
the race in.
yeah. Yeah, good one. Yes. Has that happened to you then? As somebody sort of you've spoken to somebody on the beach, you said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to do this," but you know clearly they're in the wrong spot.
I mean, it's more when I'm in the water. Like I
Oh, okay.
remember like
Okay.
doing a Crystal Palace triathlon, and it's 750-meter swim. It's a zigzag up and down the 50-meter pool.
Oh, okay.
I thought, right, what am I going to do? Well, it's non-wetsuit. I'll say 13 minutes flat. So okay, off we go. And within 20 seconds, I was on the feet of someone who's doing heads-up breaststroke, and
Yeah, who'd also put down the 30 minutes. Yeah, yeah.
um, and I mean, it's also open water. I mean, especially when you're looking at like a mass participation like an Ironman, when you've got so many swimmers in trying to take up a relatively small piece of sort of this racing line.
Mm,
I mean, the way that Ironman works is they take your time from when you cross that swim start mat. Doesn't matter what the clock says on the end when you cross the line, as long as
mm.
you complete it within those 17 hours, you're absolutely fine. And all you do by getting in sort of 10, 15 minutes faster than you think you're going to swim, you just increase the chance of being swum over, kicked,
Yeah.
clobbered, stressed out.
Well, I think um, this is a this is a problem that you often find with men rather than women.
Mm,
When I've been at races, either as an athlete or more latterly observing, as an announcer, I find the men want to swim further up, and the females are often stood a bit further back. They're a bit more reserved, maybe a bit more anxious.
yeah.
Um, I did find that, I'm like you, I'm a reasonably strong swimmer. I would swim most of my Ironman races in around or just under an hour. So in those days as well, it was a mass start.
Mm,
So everybody would going off with the gun. Although you could choose to be at the back and walking slowly rather than racing in.
yeah.
So, and it was all a much more of a shoving match. Everybody was stood shoulder to shoulder. These days, it's five in a row, 2 meters apart and 5 seconds apart. So I developed this technique of chatting with everybody around me and wishing them well and saying, "Oh, I hope you have a good race, mate. What sort of time are you thinking of swimming?" Well, I've last race I did 55. Oh, okay, well you're faster than me. Then you go there, mate. I'll go behind you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then ask the next person. Well, about an hour and 20. Oh, okay. You sure you're in the right place, mate? I think all the 120 swimmers are back there near that board that says 120 swimmers. Oh no, no, no. Well, I'm going for a PB today. Oh, okay, right. Well, that's a big PB, swimming. These are the hour swimmers. I remember being in Ironman Austria, stood on the beach when it was an Iron mass start swim,
Mm,
and chatting with these two guys and asking them. There was plenty of space for everybody to start, but I asked them, and they said, "Oh yeah, we're gonna swim under an hour today." And I said, "Oh, okay, right. Um, that's my goal too. But you guys go ahead. I'll just get a draft off, a bit cheeky." And so they went, "Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah." Anyway, the gun went, and off they went. And as we got going, I thought, well, actually, they are swimming quite well.
mm,
They both had distinctive wetsuits on, and because I was swimming slightly to the right of the crowd,
mm.
um, after about 800 or 900 meters, I caught them up, and by the time I'd made the turn, another 100 meters further on, they were nowhere. I had a quick look over my shoulder to see if they jumped on my feet. They were nowhere to be seen. Um, yeah, I think they went off too fast, and they certainly swam like 1 hour swimmers for the first K, but not after that. So.
I mean, there's a whole piece about how to pace an Ironman there that we could go
Oh, no,
into,
I think
but
that's another podcast,
that
right?
that's a completely different podcast.
So what have you got? Go on then. Tell me what you've got on the bike, because I think there's some real howlers that people commit here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, most of these I'm referring to are within sort of a group riding environment.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which again, like a lot of, or it could be that you bump into somebody else when you train, you get chatting to them because you're at sort of the
Mm,
same pace.
yeah.
But the one that I've got to kick things off with is not to half wheel other
Ah,
cyclists,
yeah. Yeah.
or sort of overlap wheels in a group. Because this just, it's often done by people who are trying to push the pace. They ride up to the front, and as sort of recommended, people are riding two abreast on a road where appropriate. and this person wants to push the pace, so they just try to get the other one to
Mm,
ride harder to catch up with them, which in itself is a bit of a questionable move if you ask me, trying to make the group ride revolve around their pace, but it also does increase the risk of a crash. If somebody needs to make a change of direction,
mm,
or tries to avoid a pothole, or that. I just think it's, just, if you want to ride faster than the group is going, you're more than welcome to going to take off at your own pace, but don't try to sort of to drag everybody else,
mm.
along with you if you need to get back quickly because you agreed to do something.
I mean, the half wheeling thing also occurs in group running, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Which you might want to come on to later. But yes, certainly, I used to ride with a cycling club when I first started out in triathlon. And the first time I got there, some of the old boys were like, "Oh, not seen you around here before. Are you a triathlete?" Then I said, "Yeah, how can you tell?" "Oh, it's obvious. You're all the same." "Oh, why is that then?" Now, bearing in mind, this was the early years of triathlon, so there
Mm,
weren't as many around as there are now. "Well, you can't ride a line. You don't know how to ride out the
mm,
wind. You don't know how to sit in a pair of two. You're all over the place." I said, "Well, okay then. Um, why don't you tell me what the etiquette is?" "Right, lad." So as soon as I'd asked him, "Right, lad, sit behind me, keep your wheel 10 centimeters from mine, do as you're told. When it's your turn to go at the front, go at the front, but keep the pace. Don't speed up."
mm.
Um, all those little things. But then, so the big one for me for triathlon was when people turn up on their tri bikes to group rides.
I've got that one as well.
Yeah. Um, there's nothing wrong with it if you want to ride in a group and that's your only bike.
Mm,
Um, Most triathletes, it's not their only bike. So yes, if it's your only bike, then that's fine. But please don't be riding on your aero bars in the middle of a group. You will not only get shouted at, you'll get asked not to come back again. It's
yeah,
so dangerous. And
yeah,
even if you're on the front, being on your aero bars is still a bit of a no-no when you're in a group of cyclists. If you're in a group of you can see videos on YouTube and on Instagram of professional triathletes riding, and they'll probably all be on their aero bars,
yeah,
and you'll see some of them on the front riding on the in the aero position. You might even see some of them in the group riding in the aero position. They've probably discussed it beforehand. They
yeah,
probably
yeah.
know each other. They're probably competent riders. I still don't like the idea of riding on your air bars in a group, by the way. I
Mm,
don't think it's a good idea, but at least in a group of people who know each other, I think that might be
yeah,
allowable. But certainly if you're going to turn up and ride with your cycling club, yeah, try bike if it's your only one, but
yeah.
don't ride on your aero bars, please. Ever.
There have been times where I've ridden not as part of like a cycling group, but I've been I've ridden with sort of family and friends,
Mm,
and we've been in a small little group. And I think it was I like my girlfriend was on my road bike, so I was riding the tri bike, but I was just on the base bars the whole time, and I just
mm,
reached forward to change gears whenever I needed to.
mhm.
And that was, I mean, my back was murder by the end of it because, when you get fitted, they don't expect you to spend 2 hours sat in that position. But yeah, unless it's been explicitly agreed that you are riding in a pace line and that there are a group of you that are gonna, be on these TT bars and that, then, okay, that's one thing. Again, I don't think it's a great idea either. Um, but yeah, it's the lack of access to the brakes. It's also not be able to point out obstructions in the road. So, I mean, sort of the etiquette is if you see a pothole, that you point to it and you shout
Mm,
out hole
mm,
or any other kind of hazard that it is that you've seen. There's a different language of when there's gravel, somebody might, wiggle their hand around. Each group has its own little sort of hand signals. And if you are there on the aero bars, then you can't communicate this. And you're also less able to swerve around and avoid sort of other people, which kind of dovetails into my next point, which I'm going to go with, which is if you are on the front, don't just freewheel for no reason, just because your legs are getting tired. It's if you do need if you are thinking get a little build-up of lactic acid, you are thinking, oh, you know what? I think I need a little bit of a break. Pull out to the side and let the group come past you and come back on at the back, as if you were sort of riding in a chain gang, rather than just stopping pedaling randomly,
Mm.
because there's a good chance that there'll be somebody who is on your rear wheel. And the more that you ride with someone, the more you trust them, the closer you feel that you can ride to their wheel. Um, but yeah, if you can just try and maintain that constant cadence, that constant speed when you're on the front, then that just helps reduce the chance of people sort of having to swerve around you or stop randomly or the likes of that. It's a bit difficult if you're approaching a junction. If you see there's a roundabout coming up or a T junction, you might
Mm.
call out slowing. Is what a lot of the groups that I do with is better, avoid, except of course in emergencies, any kind of like braking or anything erratic when you're on the front, or just within the group generally, really.
Yeah, I mean that actually that was one that hadn't got down there, but you mentioned it. It's calling out hazards. Every group has its language. We've got car up and car back.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, we've got we've got gravel. We don't do pothole, but it's just pointing generally,
yeah.
but it's inside, middle, or outside. Just as you're shouting stuff.
Mm,
The freewheeling thing, yeah, I've got some friends, one or two people who I've ridden with who will pedal fast and then they'll suddenly stop. And when you're riding along, when you see that sudden movement, it makes you suddenly sort of
yeah.
um, react a little bit. I try to soft pedal, so if I'm going to freewheel,
Mm,
I'll keep my legs turning over, so it doesn't look like I've stopped pedaling,
yeah,
but I'm
yeah,
not actually applying any pressure. But that thing about being on the front is if you get to the point where your legs are tired, perhaps you shouldn't do such a big turn.
yeah,
I think that's
yeah,
one of the things I've seen with some cyclists and triathletes is to rather than riding off from the group and showing how powerful they are, they'll try and do a turn of an hour on the front. Of course, the whole essence of through and off is that you maintain your energy throughout the ride by just
mm,
doing a little turn on the front and rotating through. And so everybody gets a minute, and then there's no temptation for somebody who's getting bored at the back to come flying through
yeah,
5 miles an hour faster than the group.
yeah.
Um, but you've got to understand that through and off, haven't you? You've got to understand which
Yes.
way the echelon moves and how to move across, and
And
all
it's
those little things. Um,
sort of part of a discussion as well, isn't it, at the start of the ride? Oh, how is it we're going to ride today? Is it just a cafe ride when whoever's at the front is at the front, and we're just going to sort of have a bit of a chat and things are going to work themselves out? Or are we going out to average a
yeah,
decent speed? We're going to try and hold about 35 on the flats where we can, and we're going to do sort of through and off like a chain gang. Um, again, it depends on the kind of ride you're on. Actually, speaking of, I haven't got this one written down, but sort of chain gang etiquette is not when you get to the front, is to simply maintain the speed, not think,
mm,
right, this is my time to shine, this is my time to show off.
yeah. Snot rockets in the group. That's the
Oh,
thing. When particularly in the winter when you're cold, your nose is running, you clear your nose. It's not the best thing to do when you're at the front or in the middle of the pack, is it? But you still see people doing it. Um, yeah, that was just a quick one. I have the erratic pedaling was one I had there.
hmm
Pedaling fast, freewheeling, pedaling easy, suddenly standing up in the middle of a group.
Oh,
Some people don't put the pressure on that there's a particular technique as you stand up, you go to put the pressure on, which keeps the back wheel going forward. But
yeah,
some people don't, and you see the back wheel come back towards you.
yeah, yeah,
If you're riding close, that can be enough to cause somebody to either twitch and destabilize themselves or the group, or at least
absolutely,
cause a sort of coming together of back wheel, front
yeah,
wheel. Um, so trying to avoid standing up
mm,
unless you all come into a hill and everything's spaced out a bit.
yeah.
But
I
certainly not when you're riding along on the flat.
No, no. I mean, I recommend to people if you are on a hill and you're going to stand up, it's worth standing up slowly and smoothly and probably changing up a gear, maybe two, so that you can
Yeah.
maintain that same cadence from the standing position. Because
Mm,
otherwise, it's like a reverse bike throw. It's
yeah.
literally, like you say, it's like the rider in front just throwing their bike back at you. And again, it's not done out of malice. People just think, oh, my legs are tired. I think I'm going to stand up to get up this hill like I do when I'm riding solo. But yeah, there's the people are expecting you to ride in a predictable manner. That's what they're basing their calculations on what it is that they're doing off. And when you start riding a bit erratically, it does increase the risk of accidents.
So here I've got another one for you, Simon, which is when you turn up, even if you're on your road bike, but you turn up wearing all your aero gear, so
Mm.
you've got your calf guards on, you've got your skin suit for a club ride, you've got your aero helmet with the pointy bit at the back. Um, you know, why? Why would you on a group ride?
Yeah, yeah. Again, if you're doing a race simulation with all your gear, yeah, that's absolutely fine. But
But again,
again,
why would you do a race simulation on a group ride on a
exactly,
Sunday? You'd
exactly.
go out and do it on your own, wouldn't you? So then you could go at the race pace as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I feel like a plonker in my aero gear, let alone I don't really see with other people when I'm looking like that, you know.
Yeah,
But the helmet that I've got, my ex used to call my sperm helmet, you know.
exactly.
She didn't
Yeah,
want
so
anything dead with me.
well, I remember the first time I ever did the weekly time trial, I'd got a pair of aero bars, and all the old boy cyclists, with the Campagnolo five
Oh
speeds
yeah,
and
yeah.
everything, they were looking at me, and it was when you might not remember this, Simon. You're a bit young, but when Greg LeMond first won the Tour de France in
Mm,
1989, he put these aero bars on, and that was one of the things he attributed the win to. But I'd already got a pair because they were reasonably commonplace in triathlon.
mm.
So I turned up to do this weekly 10-mile time trial wearing these, and the cyclists were all laughing and, they're dangerous, them. You shouldn't be riding them. You can't pull the brakes. I'm like, yeah, but you ride with your head down, mate. How many cyclists have ridden to the back of cars? So we had this heated discussion about why they thought it was cheating and you
Yeah,
shouldn't be allowed.
yeah.
By the end of the summer, they'd all got a pair
Mm,
because they'd started selling them in cycling.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, turning up in your aero gear to a club ride, probably something you want to try and avoid.
It's just
Or
not
your
the
GB,
look.
all that GB tri vest and tri suit that we talked about for the swimming.
I mean, I get it. Like, if that's the only race suit that somebody owns, then I can understand somebody racing in it. But I know some people have strong feelings about that. But I mean, you can just get yourself another tri suit, can't you? But yeah, I think like in training, it's just trying to make it's one of those things that people probably think is more impressive than it actually is. Um, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not like, I'm not hating on the GB age group team or anyone who's qualified. Of course, I have respect for everybody who's decided to go
Mm.
out there and to represent the country. But it's that there is a little bit of a there's a little bit of a cliche about the sort of the triathlete who would wear that every opportunity they can.
What about this one then? Um, Turning up on your bike with your race number still attached.
I actually did that once with my helmet. I forgot to take my race number off my helmet and I felt like a right plonker when I got home. I thought, oh no, I can't believe I did that. But yes, whether it's from a sportive, whether it's from a triathlon, any kind of sort of race paraphernalia, um, it's it's just for me personally, it's a little bit sort of cringe, just kind of like I'm trying to impress people.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Um, I don't think I've got any more. Oh, there is one actually. And I know that some cyclists are like this, but when you're riding in the winter
Mm.
and it's a bit damp and you're the one who's not got any mud guards.
I have a white jersey, not white jersey. It's a thermal jersey. It's got white paneling on the top. It's never been the same since I took it out on a winter group. And it's a thermal like long sleeve jersey. It's designed
Mm.
to be ridden in winter.
Mm.
Just riding down Surrey lanes with somebody who didn't have mud guards, and it's just you can still see the mud embedded in the jersey. It's the mud getting in the mouth as well. It's not especially clean.
Well, there is something to be said about wearing white on club rides
I
as well,
know,
isn't there?
I
Particularly white shorts.
know. Oh no. Yeah,
You see
white
that? Oh, that's
shorts.
actually the shorts thing. The shorts thing's quite an interesting one. Because you know how lycra tends to sort of it just deteriorates over
Yes.
time, doesn't
Yeah.
it? It takes a long time, but I've been on rides when people have had shorts that are so old that when they're leaning forwards and they're on their drops and they're at the front of the group, they're pretty much see-through, and that's not pleasant. It's funny, but then you'd think, right, well, we've all had a laugh today. We've made a bit of fun of it. Um, they'll turn up next week with some different shorts on. And no, they're still in the same shorts.
We have a whip round to buy some new shorts.
Yeah, yeah. So check your kit.
Yes. Um, One that I've got here is don't insist on everyone taking their fair turn on a group ride, because
Yeah.
there's lots of different abilities. If somebody's going out, if somebody's on their first ride, if somebody's nervous, they're worried they're not going to be
Mm,
able to keep up. They're just anxious about this. Don't insist that they do a good turn on the front to do their share of the work. If you
mm.
know that they're, you know, theoretical FTP will probably be 50 watts lower than everybody else's, let them just shelter in the wheels, have a chat to them, reassure them, and then they might come back next time.
Well, I think that's also an important point for your some of your newbie listeners, Simon, is if you've got experienced riders and they've got new riders in the group, is
Mm.
don't also try to break them.
Yeah,
If they can't keep up, at least somebody ride with them so they're not feeling demoralized with 20 miles to go on the way home into a headwind and they're riding all alone because you've zoomed off because you need to stay in zone two. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
that's not, it's, we spent most of the conversation talking about the etiquette of new people in the group, but
Of
actually,
course,
we
yes,
also need to respect the new people to the group. Um,
absolutely, yeah.
Again, back to when I first started with the cycling club, the old guys were a bit brusque with me to start with, but
Mhm.
once I'd shown willing and asked them to show me what to do, they were, don't ride here, lad. No, you're in the wind there. Ride over here. Just see what
Mm.
I'm doing there. See what he's doing. How he's behind on his on sat on his wheel, but just moved out there because the wind's changing, right? So
Mm.
feel it on your face and you sit there, right? Now when we go up this hill, you're a bit slower than everybody else. So go to the front so that when you get overtaken, you'll be not as far off the back,
Yeah.
and then try and put a bit of effort in to catch up. So it's incumbent upon the more experienced people
Mm.
to um, be kind to the new athletes and
It
nurture them
is.
along a bit and show them the ropes so that, not every, you can't expect people to know all the etiquette straight away.
No,
So if they're not
no.
calling out potholes, explain to them why it's important
Yeah.
and how they do it and how the group does it.
Yeah. One of the reasons that I moved into coaching was because one of my favorite things to do was when you had a new rider turn up to a group or a new runner, is you take you spend time with them, chat to them. Oh, when somebody does this, you make
Mm,
sure that you want to do this. Don't worry too much about this for this one. And you help show somebody the ropes. You can see how grateful they were that somebody's taken them under their wing a little bit,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know? I mean, what you're saying about trying to hold zone two and trying to stay in these pace zones, the sort of my general philosophy with group rides is that if an athlete of mine wants to do a group ride, I've got absolutely no problem with that. I generally say, look, in the winter, I think like 50% structured riding, 50% group riding on the weekends is absolutely fine, you
Mm,
know? But if you are heading out with the goal of doing 3 hours in zone two, do that in your own time. If you're turning up on the group ride, ride at the group's pace. It may be
yeah.
slower than you were hoping to go, but why are you riding in a group if you have a very strict idea of
Mm.
what it is that you want to do?
I mean, you can't ride it really in a lot of places in Yorkshire and probably in the
Yeah,
Cotswolds as well.
yeah,
You can't stick to zone two anyway because you probably it's almost impossible not to go into zone three going up
hmm.
hills, and when you're coming down, trying to stay in zone two is just dangerous.
It is. Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, you don't get that, but group riding is stochastic, isn't it? And
yeah.
that's the terrain as well as the riders and everything else.
Because you're probably being in sort of zone one for the most part when you're in the wheels. And
Yeah.
then when you get on the front, you'll probably be, like you say, sort of close to zone three, zone four, most depending on your fitness and the group and all of that. And yeah, it's not the time to sit there and sort of have alarms go off on your Garmin, letting you know when your heart rate's gone too high.
Yes, that's probably another bit of etiquette you need to rein in is having those alarms on in a group because they
Yeah,
will be going off regularly, won't they?
yeah. I
And
had that one
constantly looking at them and not concentrating on avoiding Big Jim's wheel in front of you
exactly.
might be dangerous to both of you.
I did a 5K race and I set off and I learned within about 20 seconds I'd forgot to set my heart rate zone alarm off. So I was sat there trying to desperately at 5K pace, desperately trying to keep trying to sort of program my watch to switch that alarm off. Um, yeah, another one piece that I've got is always bring more food and spares with you than you think you'll need.
Huh,
Not
right.
only is that to help you finish your ride and to get home safely, but it's if you even if you're not in a group, if you come across another rider that's
Mm,
stranded, and
Mm.
goes, mate, you haven't got a tube on you, have you? You can be that guy who goes, you know what? I do actually. There you go. Do you know how to change it? And to be able to help people out. I've had it on a group ride, had people who come along and they're bonking, and I then said, oh, you know what? Have this. That'll
Mm.
get you to the next stop where you can buy something to eat. Just kind of looking out for yourself and looking out for others, not leaving with the bare minimum possible to try and keep the weight down.
Oh well, that leads in nicely to a nice bit of cycling etiquette. Is if you're riding along on your own
Mm.
or you are in a group, if you see somebody by the side of the road, um, at least ask them if they're okay,
Yeah.
right? They may just have stopped to check directions or to make a phone call. You may see them already halfway through fixing a puncture, but we've all been in that position where we've suddenly lost our tire levers or one of them
Yeah. Yeah.
snapped or
Yeah.
the inner tube's gotten a puncture in or something. You just don't know whether somebody's all right. So I make it a point now of asking when I see people
Mm.
by the side of the road if they're okay. And
Yeah.
if somebody does ask you, then don't grunt because you're in a bad mood because your ride's been interrupted. Wave and say thanks for asking,
Yes. Yeah.
so that at least it's acknowledged. Or I'm okay, thank you, got it sorted. Um,
Yes.
I I'm constantly surprised by the number of people when we've been stopped to change punctures, just ride past and don't ask.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm always pleasantly surprised when people are almost taken aback that you've asked if they need help,
Mm.
as if it's not common.
I think I guess this is another kind of sort of cycling etiquette. No matter the bike that somebody's on or the kind of cyclist you deem them to be, to still offer them, ask them if they need help. If there's somebody just wearing normal clothes who's there with a hybrid bike staring at it because they can't work out what it is, just because they're not what you deem to be a proper cyclist doesn't mean that you don't offer to help them.
Oh, we had a guy. I think I was out walking. I live by the canals, so it's
Mm.
quite popular with cyclists commuting, and there are non-cyclists who toot along on the mountain bike or the hybrid or something. But I did come across a chap once whose chain had broken, and it was quite a long time ago now. But I walked him back to my house here, and we
Yeah,
got
yeah,
a chain breaker and fixed it for him and got him on his way. At least
yeah.
pointed him in the direction of the nearest cycle shop, which was 5 miles away. Um, so at least he could carry on. I mean, it was his bike was in a poor state of repair, so it was
Mm.
going to break at some point. But at least he got going.
Yeah, yeah.
You can be a good human, can't you? Regardless of whether you're a cyclist or not.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree. So I've got one last point for cycling, and then we'll move and we'll start to wrap things up because running, I've only got, I think, two points for which you should be
Mm.
able to rattle through. Um, so the last one I got from cycling is as a male cyclist, how it is that you ride around solo female cyclists. Because I've read a lot of obviously no first-hand experiences, read an awful lot of stories on social media about women who felt very intimidated by men who will just jump onto their wheel
Ah,
and ride behind them without introducing themselves or saying anything, which I guess is another kind of cycling breach of etiquette, regardless of gender.
mm.
You don't just ride on somebody's wheel without acknowledging them, introducing
Yeah,
themselves.
yeah.
But I think it's all the more kind of concerning for women if they don't know, because it's somebody who's fitter than them, it's somebody stronger than them, they can't be sure of their intentions. Um, is yeah, not to do that, but also not to feel that your manliness is being sort of challenged if you get overtaken by a female cyclist either.
Well, round here it could be Lizzie Diagnon overtaking you, so you'd be hard pressed to catch her up and drop her,
Yeah, yeah.
um, or Georgia Taylor Brown or Jessica Learmonth.
Well, there's a
But
lot of serious cyclists in Yorkshire.
there are. Um, I mean that it's a good point you make. Certainly about female cyclists and encouraging them into the group as well.
Mm.
Um, but also that thing about drafting off somebody. I've had people sit on my tail before, but they've not asked. At which point they do get the snot rockets. I just pretend I don't know there, so I'm willy-nilly squirting my bottle and freewheeling and sitting up and being erratic on my pedaling. Um, but yeah, I remember once cycling with a couple of friends in Lanzarote. He was an ex-professional triathlete. She was one of the best age groupers in Britain. I was,
Mm.
you know, I was neither of those, but we were out for a ride. We were going up this hill and they dropped me. They
Yeah.
passed this guy. Um, and I think he must have realized when he heard them talking that um, she was a female. She had quite short hair, so you couldn't tell
Mm.
until you heard her talking. So this other chap who we didn't know must have got very upset by it. So he completely sort of nailed himself to overtake them again up this
Yeah.
hill,
Yeah.
riding past, head down, no greeting. And when they got over the hill, it was a long straight stretch of flat road, but they couldn't see him anywhere until they went past this wall um, by the side of a building, and there he was leaning against the wall, sort of heaving for breath because he was completely out of it. Um, and obviously, he just didn't like being overtaken, but made a bit of a fool of himself to just,
Yeah.
well,
Border
because you don't know who
peace.
it is.
Border
Don't know who it is.
peace. Yeah, yeah. If you are in Mallorca, Lanzarote, Leeds, Loughborough, anywhere like that, and you bump into a professional athlete who's training, don't try and accelerate really hard to see if you can keep up with them. You acknowledge them. You go, oh, hi, Alistair.
Yeah, bye,
Morning.
Alistair. More
Yeah,
likely
yeah,
bye, Alistair, or
yeah.
bye, Johnny, or bye.
Yeah. But there's no
Yeah,
kudos to be, oh, you know what? I managed to hang on Lionel Sana's wheel for 100 meters. Oh, great. What do you want? A medal?
yeah. He was riding no-handed and doing a gel at
Yeah,
the
yeah.
time. Yeah, yeah.
So running quickly, I've got, well, if you want to kick us off with running.
Well, I didn't really have much.
Hmm.
Quite a lot of the things that we talked about in swimming could be attributable to running. So, you're on the track and you're trying to start your watch when the next
Yeah,
400 is
yeah,
just about to
yeah.
go off. That's the same as being in the pool. Wearing your tri suit to the park run.
Oh, no, I've never seen that one.
That's yeah. Wearing your tri suit to the park run is probably a big no-no. It's a fun morning out for most people,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there you are in your aero stuff, looking cool.
In your oak
Particularly
trees.
if you get dropped by the 15-year-old lad that's doing it for fun. Again, having all the gear, doing club runs, but wearing your 250-pound Nikes to go 10 seconds faster.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
I think the one thing I hadn't had was wearing your finisher shirt, because particularly if it's you've been to the latest, you've been off and done the Ironman somewhere and you
Yeah,
come
yeah.
back and now you've got your finisher shirt. Maybe wear it once down the pub or to your
Yeah.
friend's barbecue, but not to every club run. I think
No.
people know,
Um,
don't they, or they don't.
you don't want to tell people that you went to Kona when you're walking around Sainsbury's.
Yeah, in
Um,
your speedos.
no, I think you would be asked to leave.
I've seen it.
Oh
Not maybe
wow.
in Hawaii actually. I've seen
Oh
people
right,
in
okay,
in in
that's
in Walmart in Kona wearing the speedos and their runnies. Yeah, but that's another story.
one that I've got is a bit of a question of what I've been accused for a breach of running etiquette, but I wasn't convinced that it was. Training with the club at the track, and I was on this guy's heel, and we were running 300s. So we were really working. And I'm closing on it, and he's really starting to slow down, and he's really like flagging. And now there are runners on my right that are overtaking him. I'm stuck behind this guy,
Mm,
so I dive to the left to get around him because I'd been doing a lot of track cycling at the time. And when you're riding on the track, if you've got a rider that's slow in front of you, because you're
mm,
all on fixed gear bikes, you drop down onto the Côte d'Azur, and these things happen. I was really chewed out by this guy. I mean, he was exhausted, probably didn't help with it. I was really chewed out by him, and I thought, oh, is that a thing? Is that like an etiquette on the track?
yeah. Did you have to jump off the track then to overtake him, or was he running wide on the bend?
He wasn't completely. I had at least. I think I was still on the track. Come to think of it, I can't remember now. It's so long ago.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, I can understand why people called you out over it. It's difficult when you've got other runners coming around because they're not going to pull right out into lane 3 to pass. I do
No, yeah,
I do think that. that whole communication thing is if I'm running anywhere and I know there's people around me, I'll just put my hand out and indicate I'm moving to the right
Yeah.
to let them know. Um, yeah. I mean, in races, if I'm passing somebody, if I'm going downhill when we're riding in a group, but we're in the Alps, I tend to descend faster. So I always tell my friends I'm coming past on your left.
Yes.
So you know, maybe overtaking on your left. I don't know.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean that can confuse a lot of people if they're not kind of cyclists, triathletes themselves. If you're approaching somebody who's on a shared path and you say on your left, they'll often step to their left.
yeah,
So that
yeah. Well,
can,
yeah. No, you're right. I do. I have on the canal get that quite a lot. So I'll just say overtaking on your right now.
yeah, it's easier.
Um, yeah, that's a difficult one. I would say I can understand why people called you out over it because undertaking people in a training session is probably not norm, is it?
It's probably not, but if you've got your pacing wrong and you're
Yeah.
blowing and the right, but yeah, I know. I'm not trying to defend my actions. I'm
It,
just curious, especially over something as short as a 300,
yeah.
where you want to be, you want to be getting the benefit out of that interval. But then again, it's one interval out of six or something. So how much
It's.
does
I,
it really
I think it's
matter?
back down. I think it's back down to that communication thing
Mm,
again. When we talked about swimming,
mm,
if you're swimming clockwise in a lane, if you are going to overtake somebody in the middle, you wouldn't go down the left, would you? You'd go down the inside of
yeah,
them.
yeah,
Um, and if you didn't tell somebody and you tried to do a tumble turn as they're pushing off the wall to sneak past them, you'd probably get called out for that.
yeah,
But if you told them when we're doing this 400 best pace and if I catch you, I'll tap you on the ankle, but don't need to stop. Just give me some space and I'll tumble turn and go
yeah,
around you.
yeah,
That would
yeah.
be all right.
I agree.
But
Again,
yeah,
yeah, with running, I mean, I look through and I think a lot of running, it's just about being, a decent human being, and a lot of the points that we've covered about
mm.
running at appropriate pace, and all that. I think that all applies to running, really.
Here's one, right?
Go on.
What we were doing a road trip around Europe when we went to Ironman Austria, and we went
Mm.
out a few times riding. One thing we noticed one Saturday morning in Germany, there were lots of cyclists out. And a lot of them were on, performance bikes, so they were clearly keen cyclists. Everybody waved and said good
Yeah,
morning.
yeah.
Um, there are some places where it's not as common.
Mm.
And you'll see groups of people. I always make a point now to wave to a group morning, and
Yeah.
half the time they just ride past at 30 miles an hour, um, and ignore me. But I think if you see another rider on their own, a good morning, and likewise running, if you're running and it's in the opposite direction, there's nothing wrong with a good morning, is there, to
No,
acknowledge
no.
somebody. Um,
It can just be a raise of the hand, even, or something, just, an acknowledgement. But I've definitely had it. I've been riding solo and a big group has gone past and I've got 30 good mornings. That just sort of brightens you up.
yeah, I mean that's another thing, isn't it? Wearing headphones.
Oh,
If people don't
yeah.
say good morning, maybe they don't hear you because they've got um, Black Sabbath blaring out in their ears. But that's another thing. That's a safety issue for me.
That is
But
another, yeah,
the number of people who run along the towpath here wearing headphones and they don't hear you ringing the bell, they don't hear you
yeah,
calling out when you're on your bike, and they
yeah,
they don't hear you saying good morning
yeah.
when they're running towards you. They're just in the zone.
I mean, at mile 22 of the London Marathon a few years ago, there's this guy with headphones and an ambulance behind him with the blues and twos going. And the paramedic had to get out and pull him out of the way of the ambulance so they could get this guy
Wow.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you're not
it's
supposed to, I don't think you're supposed to wear them under British athletic rules, are
no,
you?
you're
So
not. No.
you should have just got pulled from the race.
Well, that's what I'd have done. But
Yeah.
anyway, thank you for that, Simon. It's good fun, that.
Yeah.
Exchanging
Um,
notes.
it'd be interesting to hear what your listeners say. They might think we've been a bit unfair in some circumstances.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yeah, if you think you've been called out, there's comments on Spotify, or you can drop me an email. My email's down in the show notes. Thank you once again for your time and for helping out with this. And I'll speak to you soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, no problem, Simon. Thank you for inviting me and good luck with the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks again to Simon for coming on, giving us his time and sharing some of his insights from his 4 decades involved in triathlon. I'm going to stick a couple of links down in the show notes where you'll be able to find out a little bit more about Simon's podcast, which you should definitely give a listen to, as well as some more information about him and his coaching. So, as we mentioned during the show, if you have any thoughts, any feedback, things that you think that we got right, things you think that we got wrong, drop a comment down in Spotify or send me an email to the email address that is down within the show notes. And who knows, you might even have enough additional ideas to put together a second episode. Thank you very much for your company. I hope you enjoyed this episode, something a little bit different, and I'll see you all very soon.